Hey guys, today's lesson question: what are the principles of training? So we're going to get straight into it. So, principles of training. We've got two here and we've got a few more later down the track. So, we're going to start with specificity. So, specificity is making training specific to the sport being played, the movements used, the muscles used, or the energy systems used. So, an example of this: a boxer might do bicep curls in training, as these target the specific muscles that they will be using when competing. We also have progressive overload. So, before we go into progressive overload, overload is the gradual increase of the stress placed upon the body during exercise training. Okay, so it's more than normal. So, progressive overload is the gradual increase of the amount of overload so that fitness gains occur, but without potential for injury. So, for an example, each week you increase the time you run by 1 minute. You could also increase the amount of weights that you lift each week, anything along those lines. Okay, then we go to reversibility. So, reversibility is losing fitness levels when you stop exercising. So, for an example, if you get injured and cannot train for 2 weeks, you will lose your fitness levels. The last principle of training we're going to be looking at is called tedium. So, tedium is boredom that can occur from training the same way every time. Variety is needed. If you always jog the same route every week, it can get boring. So, you should look to change your route to make it less boring. So, which one of the following statements best describes the term progression when training? So, we have training is increased gradually as the body adjusts to the increased demands. Training that is suited to a particular sport or activity. Training benefits are lost when training stops, or training to make the body work harder than normal in order to improve it. So let's have a look at the answer, and that would be A. Training is increased gradually as the body adjusts to the increased demands. Next question. Which one of the following principles of training is most likely to occur if an athlete stops training? So we have specificity, overload, reversibility, or progression. We know that specificity, overload, and progression are all types of training that are going to increase your training. So reversibility is going to be the one that you do. Reversibility is going to be what occurs when you stop training. Principles of training. So, fit helps you to achieve overload. So, we need to remember frequency, intensity, time, and type. So, frequency, how often you train. For example, it could be 3 times a week. Intensity is how hard you train. So, do you increase the weight of the dumbbells you are using? Do you add hills to continuous training? Anything along those lines. Time, the length of the training session. So, how will you increase the length of each session? And type, so the method of training. So, continuous training may be an example here. So, changing the type of training, doing normal press ups to do clap press ups. That could be examples of methods of training where you alternate it to prevent boredom. Okay, so let's have a look at a marathon runner. A marathon runner using the FIT principle. So, frequency. They would look to train 3 sessions a week to 4 sessions a week. So they look to increase that amount of sessions. Intensity. They could look to wear ankle weights when they run, or they could include some hills on their route. Time. They might increase their running session from 20 minutes to 23 minutes in the next session. And type. If doing continuous training, they may look to include fartlek training in another session. Here we have a boxer. So how often do they train, the frequency? So you could look to increase your sessions from 4 sessions a week to maybe 5 sessions a week. Intensity, you could increase the weight that you are carrying. The time, you could look to increase the length of your session from 40 to 50 minutes. Or the type, you could train the same muscles differently by moving from using fixed weight machines to free weight machines. And that's going to help with their progression for their actual boxing training. Okay, so an exam question. Which one of the following best describes the frequency element of the overload principle of training? So, how hard you train, the type of training, how often you train, and how long you train. So the word we need to remember there is frequency. Frequency. And the answer there is how often you train. That's going to be the frequency. Okay, now we have some slightly longer questions here. So performers should use principles of overload, frequency, intensity, and time when training. Define frequency, intensity, and time. So it's a 3-mark question, which means you need a definition for all 3. So, simple answers. Frequency, how often you train. Intensity, how hard or demanding the training is. And time, how long the training session lasts. Okay, another question. This time it's an 8-mark question. Okay, so a sports person needs to improve their cardiovascular endurance if they are to successfully complete a 5-mile fun run. Explain how the sports person can use a suitable training method and the principle of overload to improve their cardiovascular endurance. So, what we're looking at here is we're looking at naming and describing an appropriate training session. So that's going to be worth 2 marks. We'll then look to identify and describe what FIT stands for, which is going to be 3 marks. And then we're going to apply each principle of FIT to your type of training. So the types of training that we could look at in our answers. So we have continuous training. So exercise designed to keep the heart rate up over an extended period of time using activities such as running, cycling, and swimming. Overload can be achieved by increasing the frequency, increasing the number of sessions they train in a week, increasing intensity, increasing the speed of the continuous running, increasing time, running for longer periods of time. And then we have fartlek training. Periods of exercise at different intensities, so walking, jogging, sprinting. Increasing frequency, increasing the number of times they do the training in a period of time. Increasing intensity, increasing the speeds of each session, or each section. Decreasing the time walking and increasing the time sprinting. Or increasing time, increasing the time of each section, increasing the length of the overall training time. Then we have circuit training, a series of exercise stations. Overload can be achieved by increasing the frequency, increasing intensity, decreasing rest between each station, making the activity at each station harder or working at a faster speed, or increasing time by increasing the time at each station. Or we could also look at interval training. So periods of work mixed with periods of rest depending on activity demand. Overload can be achieved by increasing frequency, increasing the number of times they do the training in a period of time, increasing intensity, increasing the speed of the work sections or distance covered, decreasing rest or time, increasing time, increasing length of session, increasing length of work section. Okay, so exam question, we're looking at explain how an athlete could apply the principles of training in their fartlek training sessions in order to improve in a cross-country run. Okay, so we want to make sure we include the following. We want to say what fartlek training is. We want to give 2 ways to apply the S principle to fartlek or cross-country running. We want to give 2 ways you can apply the PO or progressive overload principle to fartlek or cross-country running. And then we want to give 2 ways you can apply the T principle to fartlek or cross-country running. Okay, so we want to have a look at fartlek training. So fartlek training involves periods of exercise at different intensities. So a walk, a jog, or a sprint. Speed, distances covered, and the amount of time exercising change. The terrain, flat or hills, trained on can also be alternated to change intensity of the session. Note that students will not be given credit for this on its own, but how the principles of training are applied to it, okay? So we need to ensure we apply it to the principles of training. So, principles of training. Principles of specificity could be applied by making the work specific to the activity. Sessions should be carried out on different terrain. Sessions could be carried out at intensities similar to the level used in a cross-country race. Therefore, the sprint section should be at race speed with jog, walk sections used for recovery. Sprint finishes could be used at the end of a period of fartlek training to simulate the end of a cross-country race. The session could be done with a group of athletes, so when carrying out the sprint section, race conditions would apply with an athlete having to develop tactics to finish at the front. Principles of progression could be applied by gradually building up the workload and allowing the body to adapt at each small step. So increasing the working time 5 minutes to 6 minutes, not going from 5 minutes to 25 minutes, gradual. Increasing the distance covered to 800 meters to 1K. Only increasing when body is coping with distance or time being worked. Important to avoid injury. Okay, so principles of overload could be applied by ensuring the body is challenged to work harder than it usually does. By increasing the frequency or the number of fartlek sessions undertaken in the week or month. By increasing the intensity of the fartlek sessions by increasing the amount of sprinting, increasing the speed of the sprinting or jogging, increasing the distance covered in the fartlek session. Time can be manipulated by increasing the working period, decreasing the jog, walk periods, whilst increasing the sprint sections. Of tedium considered in relation to motivation, vary the distances and intensity worked at, vary the location of the sessions like using local hills, vary the day or time of day, vary the people an athlete is training with. So think about frequency, intensity, and time, given they will be classed as overload and deemed as only one of the principles of training. So keep that in mind for your responses. So here's an example of a 7 out of 8 mark. So one suitable training method is continuous training, which is done at a steady pace for a long period of time. This is suitable as it mirrors the pace that occurs during a 5-mile fun run. Frequency is how often you train, for example, 3 times a week. Continuous training helps to improve a sport person's cardiovascular endurance and their performance subsequently, when performed at a moderate frequency. Intensity is how hard you train. For example, faster, heavier, less recovery. Intensity is how hard you train. For example, during continuous training by training at a higher percentage of your maximum heart rate. Time is how long you decide to train for. An athlete can decide to gradually increase the amount of time that they train for. in order to achieve their performance goal of beating their best time. So reminder that we looked at the principles of training today. So we had a look at specificity, progressive overload, reversibility, and tedium. We then had a look at the FIT principles, so frequency, intensity, time, and type.